Yeah, VK3 and VK3 FTOM. Why don't you just take him to the groomer?
We actually can now, but yeah, it's one of those things, mate. You take him to the groomer, you look at $45 for something that, we've got all the implements of destruction here we can do, and we're not really doing much anyway.
Yeah, fair enough, not a problem. Yeah, anyway. Yes, I don't know what was up with Jamie. When I pointed the bean towards him and I could hear him and we're all lined up, he was down in the mud. He was only just breaking through the squelch here.
Yeah, I wonder whether he's full whack here, of course, but I just wondering what antenna he was running, whether it's not getting out very well.
I said maybe he was on low power, just with the mobile in front of the car.
No, I think he was on the car radio.
Yeah, but running low power from the car radio and maybe just a mobile antenna back to you.
May well be. That could be why. Yeah. He's dropped his son in the car off to get repaired at opposite lock. So, yes, it did seem a bit strange that he was full wacky.
Yes, I can understand why he would have been surprised when he came up.
Yeah, like he's normally about an S3 or 4 and readable 0, so that's why I was in shock.
Yeah, well, what he should do is put up some better antennas and up a bit higher.
I think it's terrain more than antennas, the problem with Jamie.
Yeah, right. Well, I can work him from Mum's fairly well, but he's only about half a K from... not half a K, that's probably a bit of an exaggeration, but he's only probably 3 or 4 Ks from Mum, so I can work him very easily.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that'd be right. You both that close together, you shouldn't have a problem.
Even though there is literally a massive hill in the way, but I think it's one of the cases where we're just that close that it doesn't really matter.
Fair enough. Yeah. So what's FOMO doing today?
Oh, she's I don't know. She might be working or she might just be at home enjoying her holidays. I don't know.
Oh yeah, of course you're all holiday, not having to do online schooling, or I take it that that's still going to continue on for them for a while.
No, I have, after the school holidays, I have one more week left of homeschooling, then we're going back to proper school.
Oh, okay. Oh, well. Yes, I'm sure you'll be upset about that.
No, I'm actually, it's an excuse to leave the house in this state of lockdown and complete and utter coronavirus chaos, so I'm actually looking forward to it.
Oh, okay. I can understand that. Yes. Yeah. Well, you need that socialising, don't you? That's the problem I have with the radio club. It's getting a bit painful, some of the Zoom meetings.
Yeah, it's all, don't get me wrong, it's a good idea, but it's no replacement for face-to-face Zoom.
Yes, I think, you need to have that contact. You be around for the funeral tomorrow?
Oh, is that the? I haven't been sent the links, but I was aware there was one on after the net on Sunday.
Yeah, it's on the Facebook page. I think it's tomorrow, sometime tomorrow. I haven't actually got the time.
Yeah, right. Okay, not a problem. I might poke my head in for a little bit. Yeah, it's a shame. 71's young, but hell, mate, it all happens to us at some stage. But yeah, cancer, I suppose, mate, is an absolute devil. Back to you.
Yeah, he was complaining about all the operations he was having each time he came to the club, but I didn't realise that it was that close to. It was 2 p.m. tomorrow, 30th Wednesday tomorrow, and 2 p.m. Yeah, so 1400 tomorrow.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for the info, Greg. Yeah. Anyway, it's all not great, but hell. Unfortunately, mate, we all have an expiry date, and some just sooner rather than later. I don't mean to sound all grim and grag, but it's just the way it is.
Yeah, well, I already had one funeral, or have we had two? We had definitely one on Zoom, which was interesting because you probably pay more attention than if you were actually there because you'd be chatting to the person next to you.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, mate, it's I don't prefer I actually prefer the proper funeral service than staring at a computer screen and going, "Wow, didn't he have such a wonderful life?" VK3ND, VK3FTO.
Yeah, the funeral's mainly for us, not for them, because they're gone. It's more for us to, to get together and, reminisce. It's a weird, it's weird.
I'm aware of why we have them, but at the end of the day, it's staring at a computer screen isn't as, how do I put this, fitting, in my opinion, as actually all sitting there in somber and reminiscing, if that makes any sense. I'm not trying to be rude, but that's just the way it comes across. But yeah, I do think at some of these funeral stuff online, I personally think mourning in person is certainly the better approach. VK3ND, VK3FTO.
Yeah, but I know the last one we watched is the slideshow and that they had on. You tend to actually watch it and I didn't realise he was there when we were there, sort of thing.
Yeah, I suppose so. I suppose there is a bit of that. It was funny. I was talking to who was I talking to? Talking to somebody the other day, and they were saying that apparently 98% of funerals now are being conducted that way. And you sit there and go, yeah, I do agree the slideshow and all that's important, but at the end of the day, it's a lot harder to grieve when you're just looking for a computer screen. That's just my opinion on the matter, because there are some things which I personally think should be done face to face, and I do think the limit on 10 people at a funeral is a bit ridiculous. VK3ND, VK3FTOM.
You know, they had, I think they had 10, they had 8, and they were all sitting, 2 metres apart in a hall that normally holds, like 40 people. It seemed a bit strange. So one we went to for Carl, did you go to Carl's? You probably weren't around for that.
I met Carl, but unfortunately, no, I didn't. I wasn't there.
Yeah, well, the last 3 or 4 amateurs that have passed away have gone to is it Hermitage or Heritage, opposite the old drive-in there in, what would it be, Montana there, I think.
Yeah, right. The last funeral I went to was Peter VK3 PJC's father.
I don't think I went to that one.
I don't even know if you know the bloke.
No, I don't think I do.
Yes, Peter unfortunately is one of those amateurs who's very technically smart but not very active. Back to you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's the one that I would have liked to have gone to was Harry Cranville's, but I was in Alice Springs at the time when I got that notification, and it was just not practical to get back.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, so yeah, as a matter of fact, I spoke to Peter yesterday, and yeah. Anyway, it is what it is. But yes, I thought that was a rather tributing. I'll get the words right. Service to his father there. But yeah, shame it happened. But hey, I suppose it has to happen to all of us eventually. VK3ND, VK3FTO.
Yes. Oh, well.
Naughty, naughty, naughty.
I thought the forecast was to rain today. It's looking right. Looks reasonable out there. It looks cold, but it looks reasonable.
Well, I'm currently sitting in the back garden. It's a bit overcast, but it's not terrible weather. Do you want to see if anybody else is around for the 525 net, Greg?
Yeah, I'll give a call out. Anyone else out there for the 525 net? It's VK3ND. It's usually, Jason, he's time to poke his nose in. But anyway, anyone else out there? VK3ND. Looks like it's only the earwigs out there.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I was aware that. Who was it? Yeah, there was some interesting stuff. Oh, Greg, changing the subject. You're an expert in the Chinese cheap radios. You have TYTs and Bofangs and just about every Redivus's and every brand under the sun. Have you ever played with the? There's a brand called QYT. Is that just a knockoff of TYT?
No, I think it's a separate one, and the only one I know who's got one is League, and we programmed it at the club, so the software for it is on the club computer. I think we only put like RML and REC in it. I don't think we put much in it. No, not even RML. It was REC. Yeah, it's a chunky looking like 4-channel radio or something. It's got four-channel display on it. I think you can monitor a couple of them at the same time.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. Have you seen the Alens DMR radios?
Only the one that Frank was looking at, and I think Frank would have trouble running it. I think a lot of it's menu-driven, even though it has a lot of keys on the front for a blind person. I think unless it's going to speak to him, I think it's going to be hard for him to actually know where he is.
Yeah, yes. I think we're talking Frank through JR, right?
Shot at JR. That'll go over your head. You wouldn't have been around when that stupid show was.
No, I wasn't. That did go straight over the top of your head. But yeah, the only reason why I bring it up is because, yeah, personally, there are some DMR radios which are like channels, and each channel goes to a talk group. I personally think if you're a blind ham, would be the more appropriate choice. As I said, I don't know for certain because I'm not blind, but yeah. Anyway, it is what it is. But yeah, you do certainly sit there and look at some of these transceivers and think, how good are they actually? Like there was, there's another company called Samcom, and I've looked at some of their equipment on the internet and gone, I wonder if that's any decent. Because yeah, there's some interesting stuff coming out of China, especially on the HF market with the likes of Zaigu or Jeju or however the hell you, or Zaiju or however the hell you say it. Or there's also Alens. They're also making some HF gear. You do sit there and wonder, in the 80s and not even the 80s, before in the 60s and 50s, it was all Helicrafters and all this, and then came out Yaesu and Icom and Kenwood. So I wonder if the next big revelation will be the stuff coming out of China. Back to you.
Depends. Look, you're talking to the Chinese just copying stuff that already exists on the market, really. And sometimes they've been successful, sometimes they've been woeful.
Yeah, VK3 and DVK3 FTOM. Yeah, you do wonder about the, how do I put this, the quality of some of this stuff. The big interesting thing, I think, is people who say the Baofangs are unspectrally pure. And you sit there and go, well, from what I've heard from the people in the know, even a few Baofang dealers, is that it's not necessarily the Balfangs, which is the problem. Apparently, apparently there are people knocking off Balfangs, which I don't really understand. Because why would you knock off a cheap Chinese radio anyway? Back to you.
She said that the DMR radio went spastic. Yeah. Looks like you can put photos on David Nesbitt's memorial page at Tobin Brothers.
Yeah, VK3 and VK3FT. Isn't Tobin Brothers that company which does all the advertising on the radio?
Don't know. They're all owned by the American mafia.
I don't think that's exactly true, but yeah, there is a company called, because if I'm not mistaken, they're constantly advertising on Shroud W. I'm not sure if you listen to that or not, but yeah. Anyway, it is what it is. But yeah, you do sit there and wonder about some of this cheap import equipment. That's like, you sit there and, I'm not sure if you ever scrolled through eBay and looked for single band rigs for 10 motors, 28 megs. You look at, if you go onto the internet and put in 10 meter radios, I swear 90% of them are not meant for amateur use. Back to you.
You mean they're CBs designed for CB and they've been modified to do amateur radio? You don't think they're the other way around?
No, what I mean is, you sit there and go, these were clearly intended as CVs, but they're selling them as amateur equipment so they can put higher RF output on it.
Oh, I'm sure that's the case. And, yeah, well, the classic was my 7000 that came with all the CB in it. So clearly whoever had it before me was a CB. But, yeah. Yes. That's, I think that was the case always. I mean, there was a UHF rig that came out for the amateur band. I think it was Electronics Today or one of those magazines bought it out, and it came out as an 80 channel, or was it a 40 channel UHF CB rig you could build, and then it wasn't long after it came out that you could change a few things in it and could be on UHF CB, but it was actually designed for 70 centimetres. Can't think what the kit was called. I don't think many people bought it because by the time you actually bought it as a kit and built it, you could actually buy a radio that would do the same thing for about the same price. Yeah. Because once you built it, then you had to try and tune it up, and if you didn't have all the test gear, it was going to be a bastard of a job.
Yeah, I don't know how that works with type approval either, VK3ND, VK3FT. I mean, you don't know how that works with type approval though, mate. But yeah, there is some interesting stuff. Who was the company? I'm just trying to think. But Southeastern Communications is selling some Chinese radio, which they claim is type approved for the UHF-CB, and one of their advertising things. This is Southeastern Communications. Is if you have an amateur license, you can program this to also work on 70 centimetres. And I sit there and go, well, actually, how legal is that? Back to you.
You got to look through the type approval process, mate, and realise that it's just a money grab by the government, because basically all those radios will work on any band, and they're just trying to, you have to get it type approved for CB so we can make $1,000 out of it. We will allow you to transmit on it. It's just a money grab.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, you don't want to be caught by the ACMA with something and then be dealing with fines, mate.
I think you're missing the point there, Tom. They're all, the radios are going to work because they're made by major companies. They're not going to produce a radio that's not going to be compliant with having to transmit within its band limits, its specs. But the technicality of whether it can work on 70 centimetres or CB is just paperwork. That's all it really is.
Yeah, but in order to get the paperwork legal, you need to send it into the labs to get them tested, and then go to the ACMA and tell them to type approve it, don't you?
Yeah, it's just technicality. It's the rig's not going to be any different. It's going to be the same rig. Might be limited to 5 watts, but it's still going to be the same radio, whether it does CB, commercial, or 70 centimetres. It's just paperwork. All it is someone giving someone a job to say, we won't type approve that rig because, blah, 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 blah. It's going to work there anyway, so what's it matter?
harmonics, spectral purity. Where else do I think? The RF output limit. Things like you can't have a DMR radio on UHF-CB.
Yeah, they're just all the logical things, but that DMR radio will work on FM, so why can't it be used on CB? It's just them saying, oh, no, we want to have it type approved as a money grab.
Call me a skeptic on that comment, Greg. VK3 MD, VK3 FTOM for ID, so.
It would probably be better if we didn't have a type approval process and you wouldn't get the crap. You know, they're registering these little handheld radios that shouldn't have been even let out of China because they're just rubbish, and yet they say, oh, they can get type approved for CB.
You're talking about the stuff at the Southeastern Communications thing, which I sent you the link to.
No, not so much that. A lot of the Uniden shit that comes out is just crap, you know. It's lucky to talk across the road because it's just made from shit. You know, they're saying it's got to have a type approval project. Yeah, sure. Well, if you're going to have a type approval project, it's a crap radio. It shouldn't have got a type approved.
Yes, some of that Uniden stuff's not bad, but the higher end Uniden stuff's not bad. But yeah, the cheaper budget stuff that they say, this is type approved. Yeah, you sit there and go, yeah, this is what I call... you might as well be using, in my opinion, you might as well be using two tin cans and some of those half a watt little cheapies which they were selling.
Yeah, well, Jayco was selling 70cm radios to the public that worked on the LIPD bands, and I bought 2 of those, and, you know, admittedly they're only squirrel power, but their receivers were so deaf, you know, the transmitters on them were fine. They were putting out about 20 milliwatts. And on a normal radio you could hear them fine, but the actual receiver in the handheld that they came with was absolute crap. It couldn't receive its own, you know, if you had 2 of them you couldn't talk to each other on them. Yet you could talk to a base station on it, you know, which had a better receiver in it. So, yeah, it's all horses for courses, I suppose.
Really? So they were selling radios in the LIPD subband, were they?
Yeah, I think you can still buy them. There's, how many channels was there? Was it 94 channels or something? It was all channelized. You can transmit on those, the 70cm band if you want. Didn't see what talk group that was. Yeah, I think you can still buy them.
Yeah, right, I've never heard of them being used on the LIPD subband, though. Never heard of that before. Yeah, I know I can transmit on 70cm. What I'm wondering is, I don't know, there's no clear bit in the regs about this, but whether some of these LIPD sub-devices, which work on the bottom end of 70cm, if an amateur can control them using an amateur radio. That's what I want to know. Back to you.
Say that again, what was that?
Some of these LIPD devices. What I want to know is what's the legality, because you're not supposed to work people who aren't licensed. So what's the legality of using a LIPD radio and then having a 70cm radio and talking to somebody using that when you're using your amateur license to talk to them?
I don't know. When the rush was on to sell those LIPD radios, there was a fair few kids on them around here using them, running around, and they were fun to play with and stir up on 7.
Yeah, right, okay. So they were actually selling a fair few of these LIPD radios, were they?
Yeah. 69 channels, that's what it was. 69 channel UHF, and they were 433 to 434.5 or something. They're all around that end. And, which is basically why all the 70cm repeaters have had to move to a 7 meg offset to get away from them, because they're not only there's kids and that talking on there, there's also every second burglar alarm, wireless burglar alarm system, and all the weather stations and everyone's backyard are smack in the middle of that. If you look at it on the spectrum scope on the radio here, you can see all the blurts and spurts and everything that's on there. It's just packed.
So there are a fair few LIPD devices on the air then?
weather station out the backyard. Yeah, there's lots of stuff that run on it. So, yeah, it's one of the reasons I had to move my dongle was on 431. I had to move it further away because it was locking out the car. Key fob on the car, you couldn't lock the car.
Yeah, right. LOPD stands for Low Potential Interference Device, doesn't it?
Yeah, and the nasty Americans allocated it to the people to use because their amateur band is at the other end of the tent. Was on 444 for their repeaters, whereas all our repeaters were on 434 that went down this end. So yeah, and unfortunately, all that sort of equipment's going to flood into the market because you probably find that those 900 meg key fobs that they use over in America are here as well, and all the mobile phone towers are having trouble with them because they've made it into the Australian market.
Yeah, right. Some of those, the amateur band in the US, I think, is 420 to 450, and here it's 430 to 450, isn't it?
Yeah, we were 420 to 450, but the WIA didn't fight hard enough in the top end of the band.
Yeah, wasn't that during the whole Olympics when all that happened?
Temporarily, they run the Olympics, the 420 meg band for Sydney only, and they could run all their handheld radios up there so they could coordinate everybody to do the stage dancing. But yeah, we got it back after that, and then not long after that they gave it to the Piggy Wiggies for their radio band frequencies.
Yeah, that's where all their new P25 networks are, isn't it?
Yeah, they're currently there now, but we should have fought and got their 469 meg band given to us if they're going to take our 420.
I like that theory, but unfortunately I don't think that's how it works, considering the fact is... And personally I think we're quite lucky, because in Europe they only have, on 70 centimetres, they only have 430 to 440. And so yeah, they've only got a very, very small band compared to us. So even though we complain and say, "Oh, we lost the bottom bit of the band," we didn't lose it all. Which, unlike the Europeans, which only have 430 to 440, so we're quite lucky in that sense. Same with 2 motors. The Europeans only have 144 to 146, and we have 147 to 148. So yeah, we are fairly good, but at the end of the day, we're still not. I still do think the Americans have a lot better allocations. The only thing I don't like about the US allocations is on 40 metres. They don't go below 7130 when they're operating sideband, which is a bit of a pain. But apart from that, I personally think their allocation system works a lot better, except for the licensing thing. Because over there, if you're a general, which is our equivalent of standard, you get little portions of each band. Rather here, you have access or you don't, if you know what I mean. VK3ND, VK3FTON.
Yeah, the little portions are a bit strange. You're running a contest and certain people say, "Oh, can you zip down to this end of the band?" Because half the contestants don't have a license for up this end of the band. So, why would you run a contest like that? It's just crazy. But anyway, that's another issue. But because we lost 10 meg of the UHF band, we should have, at least got a bit of 900 meg band and a bit of the 220 meg band. Brings us in line with America, and that's where the equipment's all set up for America, so it's easier to get because it's already been used somewhere else in the world.
Yeah, like a lot of the gear which comes from America has 220 in it, and you sit there and go, "Well, I can't bring that into Australia because we don't have a 220 allocation,"
No, you're wrong there. You can bring it into the country, you just can't use that band. It's like having a HF rig, mate. There's certain frequencies on the HF rig that you can't go on, but you know that because you've got a license. You know what you're allowed to be on.
I'm aware of that, Greg, but it's like the whole Balfang argument. The ACMA don't like people having devices which can transmit outside of the allocations.
I think if the ACMA took it to the letter of the law, mate, you wouldn't be able to have a HF rig because I think all the HF rigs I've picked up do the 5 meg band, which we don't actually have an allocation in there.
Yeah, a lot of them will actually go on 60 motives. But yeah, on the topic of that, aren't RASA and the WIA currently petitioning for VK access to 60 motives?
I don't think that's the issue. It's an issue of moving the people that are currently there off. And who's going to pay the expense of, if you've got 100 mobiles running around on 5 meg up the top end, who's going to pay to move them, 2 or 3 meg up, or 150 kcs up from where they are? Everything has to be reprogrammed and redesigned, and I don't know that anyone wants to bite that bullet.
But the thing I don't understand is why we can't just operate there anyway, because we're a secondary service, just like on 70 centimetres. We're not the primary service, we're a secondary service on 5 megs.
Yeah, well, that'll be what will end up happening, and it's like everything else, if there's a war on, mate, the military can use whatever they like, so you'll find that you probably lose all your bands because you'd have all this splatter from their super high-powered spread spectrum radios taking over while they fight the alien invasion.
Yeah, and not that we are currently a secondary service on 5 megs because we don't have an allocation at all, but I'm saying according to the ITU, which, was it the ITU or was it the IARU? It was one of the two, I think it was the ITU. And I think it was WRC 15 where all that was brought in. But unfortunately we haven't adopted it yet because our government doesn't want to move people or say you'll have amateurs in your frequencies. Which sucks, but hey, at least the likes of the WIA and RASA are currently petitioning to get that changed. Back to you.
I think you'd end up being a good ambassador for the government. Or should we go Heil Hitler?
Greg, you can't say that. VK3ND, VK3FTOM. Yeah, that is one of the problems I have with the government is I don't suffer fools gladly and I don't like bureaucrats. Back to you.
What's wrong with Comrade Dan?
The fact he's destroying the economy and I'm not going to go any further than that because I don't want the whole of Melbourne coming up and giving me an earful. VK3ND, VK3FTOM.
Unfortunately, with poor Dan, he's the turkey that was in at the time, and he's having to play it safe because he doesn't want it all coming back at him. So he's playing it safe. But yes, I can see he's in a no-win situation whichever way he goes. Because when everyone goes back to doing what they were doing next week, we'll just have the third wave hit.
Boy, you're not very optimistic about letting people make decisions, but anyway, VK3ND, VK3FTOM returning. Yeah, no problems. Greg, what do you think about the case of, I'm not sure if you saw it, but I'm not sure if you read it, but there was a news article came out by the BBC and it was plastered all over the internet. I'm not sure if you've seen it, but about the UK and the dodgy television wiping out ADSL.
It was an old Valve TV, wasn't it? The oscillator inside had gone spastic. That could easily happen. I mean, that's how they used to track the TVs. They could pick up the IF. There's nothing stopping the IF going berserk and putting out a bit more out the antenna than it should. The filter can die or something.
Yeah, that's on the topic of IFs and TVs being tracked. I do find it rather amusing if you look at any of the old... in the UK, you had a license to watch television. And then they all go, and the BBC is running this scam of we have detector vans and we'll come and get you. Yeah, the only way they can get it is through the IF, and 90% of the time the IF filtered well enough that that's not going to be a problem. So yeah, the BBC's been running the world's biggest scam for 50 years with all that TV licensing stuff. Back to you.
Well, back in the day, you could transmit on 455 kilohertz, which was the higher frequency for most AM radios, and it wouldn't matter what the radio's tuned for. If they were within range, your voice would come out the speaker at the same time because that's the frequency that they can't allocate because that's the IF frequency for a lot of radios. It's the same when you buy some of these handhelds. You can move the IF frequency, which is usually around 21.5. there's interference on that, there's a few actual frequencies scattered up the band that you can use. So I remember we used to transmit on 455 kcs, stir up the neighbourhood, but you can't do it for long otherwise. You'd have a van with a whole heap of antennas turned on out front.
Here it's called Steve, isn't it?
No, Steve, it was Mr. David Gold. Yes, naughty. Oh, we shouldn't do that. It's the people I used to hang around with are not very good.
No. Yes, back in the days when you used to do all sorts of dodgy stuff on 27.
I'm going to go. I'll talk to you a bit later, Tom.
Yeah, no worries, Greg. Stay safe, look after yourself. VK3ND, VK3FTOMQRT. Cheers, Greg.
Cheers, Tom.
Say hi to Deb for me, VK3FTOMQRT.